now we have Super Bowl 60, where Mike Macdonald will coach in his second year in the Super Bowl, and it's the first year, at least in New England, for Mike Vrabel as the head coach. So the question we asked before the break, with Mike Vrabel getting to a Super Bowl in his first year, with McDonald getting there in year 2, with Cignetti winning it all at Indiana, of all places, in year 2, what does that do when it comes to the pressure on new coaching hires, both in college and the NFL? You know, if you're being hired at a program that has been historically good, or at least pretty good, they can look at you now and say, hey, look, Curt Cignetti, he took over an Indiana team that was the losingest program in like college football history, and he's made them into champions in 2 years. In the NFL, they can say the same thing now to coaches where, hey, Mike Vrabel in 1 year, Mike Macdonald in 2 years in Seattle. These guys are in the Super Bowl. Does it put more pressure on new coaching hires?
I think an easy answer would be yes, but I think the true answer is no, it shouldn't. Because
whether it should or not, will it, though? That's the question, Aaron.
You can look at it, hey, Vrabel's done this in year 1. You can also look at it and say, hey, if you don't succeed and you give up on a coach too soon, you could be Tennessee firing Mike Vrabel too soon.
That's a great point.
There's both sides of the coin.
Like, I totally agree with you 100% that it should not put more pressure on new hires, but I also think it absolutely will, right? Like, I don't think teams are going to become, even though I think they should, as I've always said they should, even before we have, anecdotal evidence like a Mike Vrabel, I've always said we give up on coaches way too early. Do I think that changes now? I don't.
I think not each situation, at least I would hope, not each situation is created equal. There are guys where sometimes it looks good and then it falls off the rails quick, and you go, well, he just has lost control of the team. We got to get rid of him. Raheem Morris, look at his first year, and then look what happened. Falls off the rails.
Here
in Tampa. So sorry, you're right. Here in Tampa, started off fast, falls off the rails, and then you hear some things about him, hanging out with the guys and maybe being a little too close with the guys, and
that's a very different situation than you typically see.
And if that happens, then you got to make the move. I think far too often the hook is too quick on coaches, and I think we are seeing an anomaly with coaches getting off to the hot start. The Bengals, they talked about firing Zach Taylor, and then he goes to the Super Bowl. Now they're talking about firing him again. Nick Sirianni, same situation. You just really, I think what we've realized is you don't even buy yourself a lot of rope, even if you win a Super Bowl. Or a championship, for that matter.
You're 100% right. And I think it's a little twofold when it comes to whether or not it's an anomaly. And you've kind of talked about it in college. If there's one thing we disagree wholeheartedly with Ian Beckles on, who, by the way, won't be with us this week. He'll be back again next week, though. But if there's one thing we wholeheartedly disagree with Ian on, is like money matters in a big way in college football right now.
Huge.
And that has been a part of what Indiana has been able to do there in their recent success. So is it an anomaly to an extent? Maybe, but also it is a product of what college football has become at the college level. At the pro level, maybe it's a bit more of an anomaly for sure, because you don't usually see first-year head coaches or even a second-year head coach like Macdonald having the kind of success immediately that they have. They won 10 games with Macdonald last year. We also seen it in Jacksonville with Liam Cohen, where they went from 13 losses to 13 wins.
Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl in year 2 as the coach of the Eagles, and what happened a couple years after that? He got the boot.
Yeah,
it happens, and
by the way, then he looked like a bad coach in Jacksonville.
Yes, so you just don't know, and I have to leave it up to these GMs to know more. So you can easily look at it and say the rope. There's a lot more pressure on him. The leash is short, but in some cases the leash is deservedly so short. Happens in other sports. Look at baseball. I think it's happening more in baseball than it used to happen. Brandon Hyde, who's now with the Rays in the organization, not as a manager, he was manager of the year in the American League just 3 years ago for the Orioles. 2023, he was manager of the year, and then he was out of a job. Rocco Baldelli, manager of the year not too long ago, out of a job. It matters. winning consistently and constantly matters.
Yeah, and it's hard to do, especially in the NFL. The NFL, to me, is the most difficult sport to have sustained success in because it is the sport. I think hockey's tough as well because it's as physical as it is, but somehow guys play 100 years in the NHL sometimes. But football is the sport where every year there are several rosters that are decimated by injury and teams just don't look like what you expect them to look like. Like in baseball, things change and teams surprise you, but the lineups or the guys that are on the roster, they're fairly consistent because there isn't the level of injury and games lost to injury that you see. Obviously, there's more games because of the amount of games, but percentage of games lost in baseball to injury can't be close to the NFL. And nothing really is. So that's why it's so hard to sustain winning in the NFL.
I think there's more pressure on college coaches to get it done faster than NFL coaches to get it done faster. The NFL, it's just it's moving parts. It's constant movement. College, like you go to a program, you're supposed to be there for a while, and you're supposed to have success for a while.
By the way, I think it's fair that maybe not that the leash is shorter in college, but that the expectations are that you can turn it around faster.
Where the money they're making and the buyouts, yeah, you're right.
Well, and you can turn over your entire roster from year to year if you want to.
Like
right?
Cignetti, I mean, free agency, quarterback to quarterback, Miami, quarterback to good quarterback.
No salary cap like there is in the NFL. There is much more of a have and have not in college football than there is in the NFL.
Like Michigan went and paid a kid, right, out of high school, and they're like, this is going to be our guy. You don't have to do that. You can get a guy who's considered a veteran in college sports, who's been doing it for years and has experience at the college level, collegiate level, and not just at the high school level. And that way you can just put them right there and plant them in, and they're good to go.
Kind of hate it in a way because you're never going to have, like, maybe, shouldn't say never, but there aren't going to be a lot of quarterbacks that grow up in a program. And that is part of what I think you love about college sports is the ability to watch a guy grow up as a young player right in front of you.
Loyalty,
we don't get to see that.
There's no loyalty.
Well, no what?
Loyalty.